Yeah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shai. I want to give all praises and all honor and all glory unto Yahweh. Bahasham. Yahweh Shai. Bahasham. Racha HaKodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well. To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect, the elect, Shalom. To the Israelite foreigners who phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold, Shalom. To you sisters, you Akwathium, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence. This your brother Aram Yahawada with the lesson.
Bears fruit. Jesus presented another parable. So this is what you bring? Is this what you mean right here? This particular parable?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Jesus presented another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared.
So we got these so-called two Christians, right? Which are really meant to be Israelites, but they're in a heathenistic mentality. And they think they know the Bible, but and this is what's wrong with the world. That's why this young lady, she's showing that she is an Israelite. There's no such thing as half black. Her father would be an Israelite if his father is an Israelite, or so-called what they would call black. That would make her an Israelite, or so-called black. You are who your father is, right? Now listen to these people that's in the world. This is why they don't know nothing.
Compared to a man who sowed good seed on the field, but while his men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed tares and among the wheat and went away. But when the wheat sprouted and bore grain, then the tares became evident. The slaves of the landowner came and said to him, Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then does it have tares? And he said to them, An enemy has done this. The slave said to him, Do you want us then to go and gather them up? But he said, No, for while you are gathering up the tares, you may uproot the wheat. Allow both to grow together until the harvest. And in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers first, gather up the tares and bind them in bundles and burn them, but gather the wheat into my barns. So you're saying, it seems like eschatologically that the wheat are going to be destroyed. Well,
no, sorry. Let me.
Go ahead.
The tares are gathered first.
I'm saying I said the wheat, the tares.
The wheat, yeah.
Well, at the end, that's exactly what's going to happen. When you go to Revelation 19:20, now he's speaking of Israel. Who is going to be destroyed? Remember, the tares, they are going to be tossed into the fire. And then after that, those that are saved will be gathered together to be with the Lord forever. Now, this is, I believe, he's speaking after his millennial reign. So we get to after his 1,000 years, and Satan is bound, but then he's released. That's what he's speaking of.
So you see, they don't know what they're talking about. The 1,000 years already passed, right? Satan, meaning your adversary, which is the self-proclaimed so-called white man, which basically your people, you don't have the truth. The Lord said, "What have ye to do to declare my laws and have my word within your mouth?" That ain't just for the Edomite. That's for you Jakes who are not the prophets, man. You're not the men of the Lord, man. You have no business. You have no business reading the Bible, bro. You have no business reading the Bible, bro, at all. You're a regular, basic Israelite. Just be you should just be happy you're an Israelite. But you see, your thing is you want to buck up against, the truth, and then come with your own thing, and you're out of line, you're out of pocket, right? At the end of the day. But let's hear more of this madness,
How would we know that that's what he's speaking of when before he's talking about the like this is the kingdom. The kingdom is one who sows seed,
Mhm.
and those that hear the word and receive it.
The kingdom that sows seed, that's the men on the highways and the byways sowing seed, right?
It bear fruit. That could be any believer at any
Right? And it can't be any believer. It's the elect that's coming in, right? It's not any believer. There's no such thing, right? Any believer that's an Israelite, right? The Lord's not dealing with the whole world. Just any old body. Hey, no.
It could,
Right.
but as we get to this particular parable, I'm not saying the same parable for the previous parable. This is a different parable, and so he gives various parables to describe the kingdom of God.
Yeah.
But these are the ones that someone came and sowed these tares amongst them, and how I come to this conclusion is, in the end, he says, in the time of harvest, I will say to the reapers, gather up the tares first and bind them in bundles and burn them. When do we see the tares gathered together and burned in bundles and burned? Revelation 20.
Okay.
Then who's left after that? Then the people of God are left. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but I get what you're saying.
If you now, and I could be wrong, and if you disagree, that's fine. How do you see this?
Well, I see it as, as he explains it, at the bottom, I think in verse 36 to 43, and he says, then he left the crowds and went into the house, and his disciples approached him and said, explain the parable of the weeds in the field. And he says, he replied, the one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed, these are the children of the kingdom. So that could be...
Right, and the children of the kingdom are the Israelites. Son of Man is Yahweh Shai. Right? Right? The evil one is Esau, self-proclaimed so-called white man. Right? And through slavery, right, he sowed seed amongst the Israelites. Well, really amongst everyone. Every place he conquered, whether if it's China, whether if it's Japan, right, different places in Africa, all over Europe, he sowed his seed amongst everybody. But guess what? Everyone else, seed is amongst different nationalities and nations as well, especially when you're dealing with Israel, right?
That to me can be anybody.
Okay.
Anyone that's born again.
No, cannot be. Only
and then
Israelites.
the weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The harvesters
Esau's,
are the angels.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore,
the end of the age is Esau's rulership. Age, eon, age, just a time period of them ruling. Saying this guy, this is Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. It says, and I saw an angel coming down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit, which that's Europe, right? It's a bottomless pit because you could dig and dig and no I'm gonna say no minerals, but the world's minerals mostly come out of Africa. That's why they're always in Africa. That's why they always trying to conquer different places in in the world, and mostly so they could send it back to Europe. That's the reason why the Nord Stream was very important to Europe, right? And then them destroying that they still have to get their minerals from somewhere. So now they're getting their coal or whatever they're getting to, so they can be warm, and buying their stuff from the United States, which is costing them a lot more money, which is going to make the beast to hate the whore, right? Having to pay such expensive prices, especially when the tariffs and everything is going to affect everybody, and the tariffs, everybody going to know that it's because of Donald Trump's tariffs war, them going back and forth with these tariffs, right? This is a bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand, right? That's to put them into a lower state in the Caucasus Mountains, and laid hold on the dragon, which was Rome, right? Rome, the western part of Rome fell, right? They had their 12 Caesars, and after 12 Caesars, they fell, right? Right, 12 representing government. So after their reign, their government, and it went down. That old serpent going back into the Garden of Eden, right, showing you that same spirit was in him. That same spirit that was in the serpent in the garden is that same spirit that was in Cain, right, which is the same spirit that's in Esau, right. Right, that's the Roman Empire, which is the devil, right, which is the false accuser, right? That's what devil means, false accuser, and Satan, which is your adversary, right? And bound him 1,000 years, and that's the 1,000 years that after Rome fell. That 1,000 years is when they were off into the Caucasus Mountains, right? Because we know that initially they come from Mount Seir, and cast him into the bottomless pit, right? Which the Caucasus Mountain is right along that region in Europe, right? It borders between parts of it borders between Europe and Russia, right? Yeah, which all of that is basically Asia, Eurasia, Russia. It says, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he might be loosed a little season. And see, from the time, was it the deadly wound that is healed. Yeah, so this is Revelation chapter 13 verse 11, and I beheld another beast, right, which is talking about the Roman Empire returning, right? Even when you deal with Europe, they had a thing called the Treaty of Rome, right? And the Treaty of Rome, I believe one thing said the United States was a part of it, and then I seen another one that was saying that the United States was not a part of the Treaty of Rome, but the part that they are a part of, I believe, is NATO. So the UN, I mean not the UN, but yeah, well, part of the UN too, but it's the European Union, NATO, and the European Union and America, which NATO. That's why they created that, which basically they would call the League of Nations, right? Which that's what they were supposed to be. And I mean, they're pretty much still doing that to this day, right? That's what they're fighting in Ukraine and all the other stuff, which goes back to basically to the small hatters that's reigning over everything through the international bankers, right? You know, the Rothschilds, the Bilderbergs, the DuPonts, the Gettys, the Oppenheimers, right? Going all the way back. And he exercised all the power of the first beast, which is talking about the Roman Empire, because he had to come back. And now he's exercising that power under the Treaty of Rome before him, and causeth the earth and them that dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. So when they came back, now instead of Roman togas, you're wearing a 3-piece suit and a tie, right? But you still having you know, like a plebeian patrician type of thing. You having a Senate, a Congress, right? Whether if it's a parliament or what they call democracy here in America. You're going to have a president or prime minister. And then these are things that's throughout the whole world. You got a place like Japan and even parts of China. They're the way they have their litigations, their law thing is pretty much set up the exact same way that they had their laws and how they pass laws and whatever in the time of Rome, right? And these are foreign places, but somehow you can go anywhere in the world, and these foreign places, their way they pass laws and things are pretty much set up the same way. And then if you go anywhere in the world, especially where Esau's at, a lot of those buildings, you go to Spain, you go to Canada, Australia, these buildings look like Roman buildings, Roman pillars. Going back, showing that they're the Edomites, right? Mount Seir, right? Like Petra, like the mountains in Petra, right? Right. So if you go back to the dude's video, he comes back to Revelation. He goes to Revelation 20. He skips over this part right here. It says, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan, which means our adversary, our enemy, shall be loose out of his prisons, out of the Caucasus Mountains. So around the 11th, the 12th, the 13th century, they were fighting against Jake because the Israelites ruled over Europe for 1,000 years. That 1,000 years, there was actually a decent living in the earth, right? I ain't gonna say peace on earth, but it was a decent living when Jake was ruling, right? Right, because there won't be peace on earth until Yahweh Shai take over, right? That's when there's actually going to be peace on earth, right? When the kingdom of heaven is absolutely established. But there was a decent living when Jake was ruling, right? You know, but now he's loosed out of his prison, right? Esau, 11th, 12th, 13th century. By the 14th and the 15th century, he pretty much got a hold of most of Europe. I ain't gonna say all of Europe, because there were still certain Jakes that were still ruling around that time. But they had got a lot of the strongholds in that place, you know? And you know, of course, eventually they end up taking over all of Europe, and shall go out and deceive the nations. See, all the nations in the entire world, and which are in the four corners of the earth. In the time of Cristobal Colon, before Cristobal Colon, or what they call Christopher Columbus, everybody supposedly thought the world was flat, or they only knew that part of the world, right? The only nation or people group that came over to here and lived and dwelt for a long time was the northern kingdom, and I guess it was a couple of them Hamites too. But there's a difference between the Israelites and the Hamites, right? So, right, but the Israelites stayed here, right? The northern kingdom, right? They came over to Ozareth, and they were already here. And that's how Cristobal Colon knew to come over here. He knew that the Israelites had to be over here because he read Esdras 13, verse 40 on down, right? And it says, and yes, it should deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth. And that was in the four corners of the earth until that particular point in time, right? When they so-called discovered the fourth part of the earth, right? Right, when, of the earth. But then in that time, they're going to be loose a short, what it says, be loose out of his prison. But then if you come up here, it says a little season. So they're going to be loose a little season. Then after that, they're going to be loosed. And in that time period of being loosed, you had, what is it, the transatlantic, the 13 colonies, and so on and so forth, and slavery for 400 years, rape, rob, murder. Then you got the gangs and the drugs and the war on drugs, and you had the different wars, Desert Storm, Vietnam, all these other things, World War I, World War II, and now we're in that third woe, and it said the third woe comes quickly, right? Matter of fact, let's get that real quick. Yeah, so it's Revelation chapter 9, verse 11, and they had a king over them, which is an angel of the bottomless pit. See, and Donald Trump is seeming like their angel, their messenger, of white supremacy, right? From the bottomless pit, which his dad or his grandfather is German, right? Come from Europe. They're initially from Europe. They're not from America, right? But somehow this guy, he's the president, he's the king, he's the king of Babylon, right? He's the pharaoh, he's the king of Egypt, right? A cruel lord, right? Whose name in the Hebrew is Abaddon. But in the Greek tongue, haveth his name Apollyon, right? And notice when you go into was this American their science, especially when you go into the space shuttles things, they've always called them Apollo, right? So this is basically the same thing, Apollyon or Apollo, right? Showing you the connection to these devils, right? So one woe, right? World War I is past, and behold, right? If you guys look, pay attention. There come two more woes, right? World War I, World War II, and World War III. More hereafter. So two more woes is to come, right? So that's that time period. See, and what dude, you can tell he don't know what he's talking about. What he don't understand is the Bible jumps, and then not to mention one good hint that the Lord gives you is that he tells the end from the beginning, right? So a lot of that, sometimes it'd be the end, but sometimes it'd be the past that the Lord is speaking about. And then he'll jump to the future, and then he'll jump maybe even to present, right? Present time. So this is basically right here. It's like the future and almost present time, because like we're creeping up to this time period. So it says Revelation 11, right, which is verse 13, and in that same hour was there a great earthquake, right? And the 10th part of the city, right, which is talking about America, Babylon the Great, fell, right? And that's the time of the nuclear missiles, which they're speaking of nuclear war now, right? There was a submarine right off the coast of Myrtle Beach, and then Trump supposedly sent two submarines off the coast of Russia, supposedly, right? So nuclear talks is heavy in the earth right now, right? And that's what's going to cause that great earthquake. So this is kind of future, but it's like almost immediate future, like really close, right? So it's almost like future present, at the same time. Were slain of men 7,000, right, which just means completion. 7 just meaning completion. And the remnant were affrighted, which is talking about the elect, and gave glory to the power, the Most High Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, right, of heaven, right? That's why I said this is kind of future, but almost talking about the present too, because we're really close. And then this is going to go into the past, but into the future immediately, right in the same verse. It says the second woe is past, right? That's the past, right? World War II is past. And behold, the third woe, right? Which World War III, which is the future, but it's like almost like the immediate future, because we're already talking about World War III now. Cometh quickly. See? That's what do they understanding. And it says, come back here to Revelations 20. We'll start at 8. I already finished it up on 7. It says, and shall go out to deceive the nations in the four corners of the earth, right? Right, which that's past. Going into understanding that's past. That's already happened. That's why I wanted to tell you about Christopher Columbus. That the Israelite, the Northern Kingdom was already here. They conquered the Northern Kingdom all the way to this very day. The war on drugs, the war on and then now he even gotta come down with great wrath, knowing that he had but a short time in order to fulfill all these things. But now we're gonna go into basically same thing, future, but basically we're in a time where it's almost future present, right? We're four corners of the earth, Gog and Magog, right? Gog being Russia, and the land of Magog, right? Which that's where Russia's at, to gather them, right, for World War III. That's why they're kind of beefing right now. That's why Russia president and Trump, the ex-president of Russia, is speaking, and then Trump said he implemented those submarines to go over there, which he may or may not did that, because the Russians said that they always see those submarines over there. But those are supposed to be some very powerful submarines that's over there, right? And they're speaking of nuclear weapons, right? Gog and the whore, right, which is America, to gather them together to the battle, right? That the third woe that comes quickly, right? So it's kind of future, almost present, right? It says the number of whom is as the sand of the sea, right? That's talking about all these numerous military men, right? Right. It says, and they went up upon the breadth of the earth, right? They're going to come down to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat and compass the camp of the saints, right, which is talking about the land of Israel. They're going to come to the land of Israel and the beloved city, and fire came down from the power out of heaven and devoured them, right? So that's when Yahweh Shai is going to, shoot down concentrated fire from the chariot and burn up all the militaries of the world at once. Because nothing was to be seen but nothing but dust and smell of smoke, right? Yeah, so this is 2nd Ezra chapter 13, verse 5. It says, after this I beheld, which means feast your eyes to look, pay attention. Lo, what means to look. There was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the earth, of the heavens, right? Which is talking about earth, Salakia, of heaven, right? Which is talking about the earth. These different militaries gonna get gathered to take. The Lord's gonna gather them, have them go down to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat for World War III, because it's coming quickly, to subdue the man that came out of the sea, which is talking about the Shemaims. Yahweh Shai is going to come out of the Shemaims, which they're speaking of this Atlas, this what are they called? I-3 Atlas, right? This ship that they said was 7 miles long, but then I believe Dabu said something about longer, maybe wider, maybe 20 miles long, right? Or something like that. So it went from 7 to 20 miles, so on and so forth, miles wide, big, and it's flying, and they could tell that it's intelligence coming from outer space, an interstellar vehicle. It's coming towards Earth, and they said, even their scientists said that it could be here to either help us or to kill us, right? Which is, it's going to do both. It's going to save the elect and kill the rest, right? And then whoever else is left is, you're going into slavery, right? So that's Yahweh Shai coming out of the Shemaims, out of the sea, from the heavens, right in a chariot, what they call UFO. It's gonna let's go ahead and say, and I beheld, and lo, which means to look, he graved himself a great mountain, right? So this, talking about how big it is, 20 miles long, 7 miles long, or 20 miles long, whatever's flying this way, and they could tell that it has to be some type of intelligence. So we know there ain't no such thing as aliens. We know that these are the angels. So, and flew upon it, right? So mountains don't fly. So we know that it's what they call UFOs or UAPs, right? And flew upon it. But I would have seen the region or place where out the hill was driven and could not, right? Because it came from it just came from the Shemaims, man. It came from the heavens. And that's what's happening right now. That the I-3 Atlas is on its way. And after this, I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him, right? See, all these militaries were sore afraid, right? See, you can be afraid, and yet durst fight, right? Yeah. They're gonna fight against Yahweh Shai anyway. It says, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude, they start shooting against. They trying to shoot. They trying to do everything they can do. They're trying to fire their direct energy weapons and their laser beams and sending their drones, and they doing everything they do, sending their best F-16s and the Su-35s, and they're doing all these different things trying to come against Yahweh Shai. And he's seen the violence, and he look at him like, whoa, okay, that's how we feeling, right? And he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, right, which is mean out of the chariot, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips, right, out of the chariot, it's going to open up and just shoot this concentrated fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue he cast out sparks and tempests, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell upon with violence upon the multitude which prepared to fight, and burned them up. So at the same time, the Lord is just opening up this chariot and blasting them down. That's right when Russia has that dead man switch, and basically it's going to kick off the dead man switch when the Lord drops that fire down and burn up the military. It's going to hit the dead man switch, and then of course everybody's missiles are going to get to flying. So when everybody's missiles get to flying for World War III, right, and burn them up, every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. And when I saw this, I was afraid. Yeah, so this is Revelation chapter 20 and 10. So why, the Lord's shooting down those sparks and tempests from the chariot. Like I was saying, that Russia has their dead man switch, which is going to allow for basically, Armageddon to happen, right? Right? Judgment Day, right? And the devil, right, means the false accuser that deceived them, right, came out of the Caucasus Mountain, deceived the world, went into all four corners of the earth, and they're ruling. They had the fatness of the earth, right, as the Lord said, by the sword, and was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, which that's going to be America, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever. See, going into what that this Edomite structure, right? Because really, America is still a province of Britain, right? And basically, the power, right? The military power of Esau, the connection, right? Because not to mention they had their what's it called? The world reserve currency is the U.S. currency. So this thing is all going to implode on the entire world and the entire Edomite system. Yeah, so with all that, I want to give all praises and all honor and all glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rakah HaKodash. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and do well. To the elder apostles, bishops in Connecticut, the bishops, the preachers, the teachers, the evangelists, and the four winds, preaching in truth and sincerity, risking your lives more now than ever, the hopeful elect. The elect, Shalom. To the Israelite foreigners who phenotype may look like another nation, but bloodline goes back to Israel through your father and have come back to the fold. Shalom to you sisters, you Achwathim, who listen and learn under your husband, which is your spiritual leader, with meekness and with silence and a Bible ball. Kwam Yasharallah.